Hello great people, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another session with me. I'm Refalin Bunga Setiawan with student ID 081. Today I'm super excited because we are diving into a novel that's not your typical love story because it's not just about love but also about the boundaries, in-laws, and what happens when the other woman isn't who you think she is. Sound interesting? Well, buckle up because we are about to unpack The Other Woman by Jane Green. Alright, so what is The Other Woman about? At first glance, I might think that the other woman is someone who ruins a romantic relationship, maybe a mistress, but this novel is different. The Other Woman is actually someone you might not expect at all. She's the mother-in-law. Let's introduce Ellie Blake, the main character who feels incredibly happy in her blossoming relationship with Dan Cooper. Ellie is portrayed as an intelligent, independent woman who lives a relatively simple life. She works in a hotel as a marketing director and hasn't known Dan for very long, but to her, he already seems like the perfect man. From the very beginning, Ellie is shown to have some emotional struggle with her past. She grew up in a broken home and always dream of having a warm, loving family, the kind that has regular dinners together and actually enjoy being around each other. But reality was far from that. Her mother was an alcoholic person, eventually died in a car accident while driving under the influence. Ellie has a father, but he is distant though they offer some support in his own ways. As teenager, Ellie had a bit of a wild streak. She partied a lot, drank heavily, and drifted through life. But over time, she turned things around. She grew up to be strong, independent, and successful woman with a career as a marketing director. She had actually met Dan once before, but back then Ellie didn't really pay much attention to him. Then one day, everything shifted. Ellie was waiting at a cafe for her boyfriend at the time, a workaholic who was not treating her very well. And there, at the same cafe, she ran into them again. They talked for a while casually, nothing too deep. Before parting ways, they exchanged phone numbers, but Ellie didn't think much of it. To her, Dan was still just a friendly stranger, so they lost contact. But well, sometimes things really are just meant to be, right? So Ali works as a marketing director while Dan works at television station. One day, fate brings them together again at a professional event. And this time something clicks. They talk more, really talk. The conversation is deep, engaging, and the connection bit feels undeniable. Ali is no longer dating her neglectful boyfriend, so she's open to something new. Soon after, Dan invites her over for dinner with his family, and for Ellie, this feels like a dream come true. She's always longed for the kind, warm, loving family she's never growing up. And Dan seems to have exactly that. She's drawn in not just by Dan, but by the whole idea of finally being part of something that feels whole. As their relationship deepens as a couple, Dan quickly brings Ellie into his family circle. They meet his mother Linda, who at first seems incredibly kind and welcoming. Ellie genuinely thinks she's found everything she's ever wanted, a loving partner, and a family that feels close and supportive. But over time, she starts to notice something strange. Linda is very attached to Dan, like really attached. Everything seems to revolve around him. Ellie tries not to let it bother her at first, brushing it off as a close mother-son relationship. Eventually, Dan and Ellie decide to get married, but here's where things get complicated, that Linda takes over everything. Ellie feels confused, so she be grateful or frustrated. This is her first wedding. Something she's waited her whole life for. Yet it feels like she has no say at all. Still, since Linda is paying for everything, Ellie reluctantly agrees to let it slide. So, here's what happened next. Ellie was doing her wedding dress fitting, right? Everything should have gone smoothly, except surprise, the dress didn't fit quite like it used to. Why? Because Ellie was pregnant. Yup, she and Dan had gotten a little ahead of themselves, and now there was a little one on the way. Linda, ever the observant mother-in-law, noticed right away. "Hun, that's strange," she said. "I swear, this dress fit perfectly last time." But instead of questioning it out or passing for answers, she just casually suggests, "Let's loosen it up just a little, shall we?" And was that. Fast forward to the wedding, it finally happened. Beautiful, formal, and almost entirely Linda's vision. The came big announcement, Ellie was pregnant, and to everyone's surprise, Linda was absolutely over the moon. She hugged Ellie tightly, her excitement bubbling over like champagne. It was sweet at first, but of course, things didn't stay sweet for long. Ellie still had months before the baby would be born, but Linda had already gone into full grandma mode. She went into a massive shopping spree, buying clothes, toys, basically setting up a second nursery without consulting Ellie at all. It felt like incredibly disrespectful. She had her own place, her own excitement, and her own way of preparing for the baby. She wasn't the impulsive, shop everything now type. She planned carefully, especially knowing how expensive having a baby would be. They went on their honeymoon and later welcomed their son Thomas Maxwell Cooper. Motherhood Motherhood changed Ellie. Motherhood changed Ellie. She left her job and focused on raising Tom. Life seemed okay until one day Dan's parents surprised them with a holiday in France. The house was huge enough for four families, so Ellie invited her new mom's friends, including Lisa, a gorgeous, confident single mom who had just had a baby too. Dan still wouldn't speak up when Linda crosses boundaries Ellie get used to. Even though it hurt, even though it hurt. One day, Linda and Mikhail were supposed to stay on a yacht, but it broke down, so they end up staying in the house too. That's when things got messy. One night, Lisa invited them all to the party and offered to leave the babies with Linda. Ellie hesitated. One night, Lisa invited them all to the party and offered to leave the babies with Linda. Ellie hesitated, she had doubts, but said yes. That night, tragedy struck. Linda slept while carrying Tom down the stairs. He fell and was rushed to the hospital with a brain injury. After a long recovery, Tom thankfully healed without any lasting damage, but Ellie was never the same. The guilt, the anger, it changed her. Her relationship with Dan grew distant. He still couldn't confront his mother. He still didn't stand up for Ellie. Ellie made a difficult decision to separate from Dan. They needed space, time to breathe things, and figure things out. Deep down, Ellie knew that Dan still loved her, but he just didn't know how to show it now in the ways that truly mattered. Then, out of nowhere, came another betrayal. Ellie caught Lisa, her once trusted friend, flirting with Dan's father, Mikhail. The truth hit her hard when she went to Lisa's flat and showed them together, intimate, unapologetic. It was disgusting. But strangely, it also gave Ellie a new perspective. Maybe Linda wasn't just a controlling mother-in-law. Maybe she was a woman who had been lonely for years, trapped in a marriage that looked perfect on the outside but was emotionally starving. Later, Mikhail admitted the affair was a mistake and begged Ellie not to tell Linda. She didn't not directly. Instead, Ellie invited Linda to lunch, and for the first time, she showed a different side of her. Linda didn't apologize outright, but she was softer, more thoughtful. Her action was quieter, her words less sharp. Slowly, the relationship began to mend, and in a twist Ellie never expected, it was Linda, the very woman who once made her feel invisible, who gently said to her, "Maybe it's time you go back to Dan." And then came the most surprising moment of all. Linda, the overbearing mother-in-law, gently encouraged Ellie to go back to Dan. She saw their love and, in her own way, wanted them to find their way back. With time and healing, Ellie considered the possibility. The story ends not with a perfect fairy tale, but with hope. Ellie and Dan begins to mend their relationship grounds in better communication and clearer boundaries. Their family is not flawless, but it's real, and for Ellie, it's finally enough. Okay, guys, there's my review novel. Thanks for watching. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.